Hello. The Divine Code reading for December 5th, pages 361 and 362. We are in the chapter, The Prohibition of Grafting Different Species of Fruit Trees. Topic number 7. The prohibition against cross-grafting does not apply to the roots of a fruit tree or any portion of the tree that is naturally underground. Rosh, Tor, and Shokanoric Uridea, Chapter 9, 295. So the roots, and I would assume the root ball, which is the kind of the cluster directly underneath the trunk, these would not be included in the prohibition. The prohibition is just with the trunk and the branches. Any portion of the tree that grows above the ground is not considered a root, but is part or extension of the trunk. Tractate Bhava Bhatra, 82a. Therefore, if the trunk of the tree, of a fruit tree, is cut off, even if it is cut off to the ground, it is forbidden to plant or graft a fruit tree of a different species or fruit vine on its stump. So grafting, I would assume would include where a fresh cut is made and it's directly attached to the old tree. And planting would be what it's not unusual for there to be in a rotted out tree, especially in an older tree, there will be soil, leftover rotted tree within the stump, and that would be what's being referred to here as planting it in, would be to plant a new tree inside of that rotted out old tree. And it'll be the rotted out where the old tree has a ring of actual living tree left over from the old tree, but planting it within that would apparently be what's referred to here as being prohibited. Topic number 8. Topic number 8. One of the agricultural techniques practiced in pre-Talmudic era was to bend down and bury branches of a tree or vine, bringing them out the other side as a new tree or vine in an attempt to increase the nurture received by the plant from the earth. So they would bend a branch down, or in the case of a vine, it's a very simple thing to bend, but it can also be done with a low-hanging tree branch that's soft enough to bend. Be to bring it down to the earth, have it covered up by the earth, and that would stimulate root growth from the area that's under the ground. It would stimulate root growth, and that would cause extra. The idea was that would cause extra nutrients to go into the branch. If this is done with a fruit tree, it is forbidden to graft a shoot from another species of fruit tree or from the fruit vine onto the bent down branch, even when the graft is under the ground. So the question would be, if they were to bend it down to the ground and you have root growth occurring, is it permissible then to cut at the point of the new root growth where it's under the ground at that point? And it would not be permissible because it's still connected to the main tree. Since the bent down branch usually grows above the ground, the prohibition against grafting applies. So it's not a natural thing for the bent over branch to be under the ground. Naturally, it's above the ground, and therefore the halakha that is the natural course of the tree is what's applying here. If a fruit tree branch is buried in this manner, including a grapevine, which is soft, yet categorized as a tree, and that'll be discussed in topic 11 as in tomorrow's reading. One may sow a fruit vine in the earth which covers it, even though ultimately the extending roots will graft themselves onto the buried branch. So there's no prohibition against planting trees close to each other, planting items, plants next to each other for a non-Jew. And therefore, in this case, the non-Jew is planting the tree in the earth where it will come in contact and fuse with the branch which has been pushed under the earth, and that it's permitted because that would occur naturally. It would not encouraging it to occur naturally is not the same as grafting. See the Rosh, Tor, and Shulchan Aruch Yeridea, chapter 295, hold that the prohibition against cross-grafting applies underground as well, as long as the graft can be considered as located on the trunk of the tree and not its roots. So as the graft is occurring on the branch of the bent down tree, that would be considered connected to the trunk, not connected to the roots of the tree. As explained above in topic 9.5, there is no prohibition for Gentiles to indirectly cause cross-grafting of these species, even though rabbinical opinion forbids this for Jews. Rosh, Tor, Shulchan Aruch, this does not apply to Gentiles. So this is an area, the area of planting things close to each other is rabbinic. It's not necessarily from the Torah, and therefore it would not apply to non-Jews. Although many of the rabbinic ideas have logical reasons that should apply to non-Jews, but logically was not part of the halakha. Topic number 9. As mentioned in topic 2 above, that's from yesterday's reading, the prohibition against cross-grafting does not apply to a tree that does not bear fruit. Hence, it is important to know which trees are in the category of fruit trees and which are not. Trees which bear edible nuts are considered to be fruit trees. For example, some societies have produced acorns for food, so oak trees are considered to be fruit trees in regard to the prohibition of cross-grafting. So it depends a lot upon which trees are considered fruit trees, and to some extent that depends upon whether or not some societies eat the fruit. Spice trees are not considered as fruit trees since they do not produce fruit that serves as food. So even if we eat something from a tree, but the spice is not coming from the fruit. The fruit is the soft outer part of the seed. And if that's being eaten as food, then it's considered a fruit tree. If it's not something that's eaten as food, then it's not considered a fruit tree. Trees and vines whose fruit are not desirable and not fit for human consumption are included in the prohibition if their fruit is fit for animal fodder. Rosh Mishanch on Mishnah Kiliam 1:4 examines the meaning of Hitzrod, a type of wild apple that is thrown to pigs. See Ari quoted in Magid of Abraham, chapter 204. So the actual threshold appears to be that if it's used for consumption, and that could be a very wide definition. So many trees. The rabbis have over the millennia composed lists of trees that are considered fruit trees. Because the halakkas concerning fruit trees apply in a variety of areas, not just in the area of grafting, although that's one of the areas, but it applies in other areas as well. So the list of what is considered a fruit tree is very important. A perennial rose bush is considered as a fruit tree because jam can be made from its flowers. And from what I understand, the flowers would be considered fruit of the earth. It's not actually the definition of a fruit. The definition of fruit is the rose hips, and maybe that's what's being referred. It's directly underneath the flower. Maybe that's what they're making jam out of. I'm not sure. The rose hips are considered the fruit of the rose. The petals and the leaves of the rose bush would be considered, even though they're edible, are considered they're considered fruit of the earth, which is not a fruit tree. But the rose hip, the actual fruit of the rose bush, would be considered fruit of the tree, and that makes the rose bush considered to be a fruit tree. And that might be what's being made into jam. In fact, that would make more sense than the petals being made in. But then again, I'm not sure about roses and how they eat it. Topic number 10. The prohibition against grafting different species of fruit trees onto each other applies even when the person's intent is not to produce a fruit or to change the habit of the nature of the tree. Mishnah Kliam 1:7. Oh, and concerning the roses, see Shulchan Orakaim 204:11, Megid Avraham, Shulchan Orakaim 204:23, and Shulchan Aruch Harav 202:23, which one makes a blessing for fruits of the ground before eating it, which imply that's referring to I assume that the jam, which is made from the flowers, which implies that it is a food. So I would again state that the rose hips are what's the fruit, and if they're making something from the petals of the flower, that would be the fruit of the ground, which would not be a fruit. But the rose hips are definitely making a fruit. For that reason, it is forbidden to graft a branch from one fruit tree to another of a different species, even if either of the two trees is not producing fruit, because it is old, its trunk has been cut off. This can be learned from the case of the sycamore graft, or the fruit, as it says to its kind, regarding them in Genesis 1:11. If the two trees are still considered to be fruit-bearing species, the prohibition against cross-grafting still applies. So if it's considered a fruit tree, then grafting is not permitted on that species of tree, even if it's not going to change the fruit, or if it's not going to change the species, but just the fact that it's a fruit tree makes it prohibited. And other logical reasons that we might have for it are they're the taste of the mitzvah, but they're not the reason for the mitzvah. The reason for the mitzvah is that we're not allowed to graft a fruit tree. And that's in and of itself the only reason, is because God said so in the Torah, not to graft fruit trees, because they are to stay according to their own kind. And an example of a male fruit tree species, that would be the date palm is in that category, that has male fruit that do not produce fruit, and even in that case, it would not be permitted to graft because it's part of the species. Thank you.